I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Fire and Rain Conversation Series, a series designed to inform and empower bushfire-prone communities to live safely with fire. I'm Rachel Lopes and I'm here with Emma Ashton, and we'd like to start by acknowledging the Ma people, particularly the Gudabanud and Gulajan people of the land we're speaking from today, and their deep and continuous connection with the country. We acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging.
In our fifth episode, we're talking about the economic impacts of bushfires. We have two very savvy guests joining us today, Renae Hanvin and Sharon Bradshaw. Renae is the founder and director of Corporate to Community, who are all about helping businesses and communities do disasters differently. Hi, Renae.
Hi, welcome from the Kulin Nation. Thank you.
And Sharon Bradshaw is a local legend and owner of the Forrest Brewery in our community, known to many in the region for their award-winning beer and friendly hospitality. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Emma. How are you? I'm living in the same place as Rachel and Emma, and I'm in the Ma country.
Thank you. So firstly, to you, Renae, we're really keen to hear about the work you do. And as you say, Australian small businesses are the economic and social heartbeat of our communities. If our businesses aren't operating, our communities can't thrive. Can you tell us a bit more about the work you do?
Yeah, 100%. I like to refer to small businesses as the forgotten stakeholders, because if we don't have thriving small businesses, then obviously there's nowhere to go to work, there's no economic stimulus coming into the communities. And I think COVID has probably showcased the importance of small businesses over the past few months, but ultimately they've almost been a silent stakeholder, that they exist, but no one really kind of supports them or helps to build resilience. And the fact is, if we don't have businesses that are thriving and that are profitable, then we can't have communities that survive and thrive as well.
Yeah, and we've certainly noticed that. We were preparing for this episode thinking, it's very much about bushfires, but it kept coming up in our conversation that we're living a disaster at the moment, an economic disaster, and, the sort of strategies that we're all grappling with to try and manage and cope. What are some of the things that have come up with you in comparing both of those situations?
Yeah, I think the biggest reality that we face is that I've always talked about there's a future era of disasters, and I hate to say it, but 2020 has smacked it in the eyeballs. We are in the future era of disasters right now. And that means there's natural and unnatural disasters. So fire is obviously a massive threat and vulnerability and risk to our communities, but so are other things. So power failures or telco failures or pandemics, dare I say it. And I think what COVID has shown us is that no business and no community is, can get around a disaster. So if a disaster's coming, it's going to literally hit, and it has the potential to impact everyone. And I think resilience has been a word that we've been talking about for a number of years, and it's mainly through COVID, but obviously also the bushfires, that people are really kind of understanding what it means. And what it means is that you've got to get ready to adapt, because our environment is going to change, and we've got compound disasters now. So we've got fires, we've got drought, we've got COVID pandemics, we've got threats, we've got cybersecurity. So the more that you can understand your business and how you can adapt your business and set your business up for success, and that comes with preparedness, it comes with understanding how you can get your business ready for the disasters that are coming ahead.
Renae, could you tell us specifically about what your business does?
Yeah, so we have three focuses. The first one is to help build resilient businesses, because as we've identified, if we don't have resilient businesses, then our communities will struggle. And we need to invest in businesses that succeed and are sustainable long term. So we do a lot of work with individual businesses and then also businesses in community as groups of businesses to help with the sustainability planning. We also focus on helping communities thrive, because businesses are the social and economic heartbeat of communities, but they're also enablers into communities. So the businesses, the business owners, and Sharon's a perfect example of, I mean, I'm in awe of being with a local legend in this conversation, but business owners have multiple hats in communities, so they can enable education and they can enable culture changes in communities as well, and particularly businesses that support vulnerable communities or multicultural communities. And then the last focus that we have is about leading collaborations. And I don't know if you've heard of Daniel Aldrich, but he's the global academic in social capital. And if you haven't, then you have to get him on your program and I'll totally introduce you. So he's done so much research from Hurricane Katrina and the Japan tsunamis, etc., that connected communities are more resilient than affluent communities. And in fact, people connections are more important than bottled water and batteries. So that's kind of saying a lot. So we work a lot with helping communities connect themselves, so connecting communities within communities, and then also connecting communities to government or to not-for-profits or to corporates who can help support and build resilience. So they're kind of the three sort of focus areas, and we have a number of initiatives to support and activate them, depending on the community and obviously depending on the focus from a disaster perspective.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's really amazing to think that some of the work you do sounds like we're going to be needing more and more as we go forward through the multiple disasters we're about to face. Sharon, welcome to you. And as we know locally, the Forrest Brewery is an institution in the Otways, a mecca for mountain bikes and many a Great Ocean Road traveller who ventures into the hinterland. What have been your considerations around bushfires and the impacts it might have on your business?
Well, I guess prior to opening the business, I considered what life would be like living in a bushfire area. So I lived in Melbourne and I was kind of living a happy little suburban life and thinking I was going to move to a town like Forrest. And I didn't really understand what life would be like running a business in a bushfire prone town. And I didn't really have that opportunity for the first 5 years of being in business. So we either had a good season or a bad season. A good season for us was a season with not too many total fire ban days. And then during the Wye River fires, that was like, oh, well, it's here now. We're living this. And it was almost like we had the opportunity to live through an experience without being impacted in the way that Wye River was. So for us, we were really fortunate, and it was a great learning experience because all of the things that had come out of the Black Saturday experience and all of the improved communications and emergency management strategies came into play. So we felt like we were really well resourced in that occasion, and we had the opportunity to be on communication calls every day, prior to Christmas. So we sort of knew what was going to happen every day, and that helped run the business and also communicate with staff and settle some of the anxieties around things. So we were always ready to go, like leave and evacuate. But we knew what was going to happen with weather forecasting and fire pretty much 24 hours beforehand every day. So we could certainly see the investment and the changes in the way we were resourced to respond to bushfire. And then the customers stopped coming after that. So that was really interesting too.
Can you talk about that, Sharon? How do you deal with that? And what, I think, they don't come, or either there were bushfires over another part of the state and this was the only place they could come. So then they do come. And how do you just have to go with the flow on those, in those circumstances?
Well, right now is a really true experience for all tourism and hospitality owners when the customers really do stop coming completely. But having been through it a number of times, you can see that the visitor economy responds to where the fire or disaster is. So if they've planned their holiday in Bright and there's fire in Bright and they can't go to Bright, they just look at the map and see where the fires aren't. And if it's not a you know, a high risk, high fire danger kind of day or week or weekend, they just come to that area instead. And we experienced it as well when the Grampians region had fire and flood. They just came to the Otways instead. So I'm not saying it's a good thing at all, but you've got to be able to kind of monitor what else is going on in the rest of the state and where the visitors are likely to move. And right now, like, you've got to monitor what people's travel patterns are likely to be in the next sort of 12 to 24 months and how they're likely to respond to that if you're running a tourism business.
Indeed.
Yeah. Renae, when we caught up earlier in this year and you were returning from Mallacoota, you'd been over there and talked to some of the community and business operators. Can you talk about any examples of what they did either during the event or after the event to keep their business running and try to get back on their feet?
Yeah, it was, I mean, obviously some areas were completely impacted and the businesses, you know, couldn't keep trading. The biggest thing I found was that I mentioned before, a lot of people have multiple hats. So a lot of the business owners have other leadership roles in the community. So particularly those who own the general stores or whatnot. So a big problem that they had was identifying, like, when they were out fighting the fires or helping to recover, who was running the stores, and they hadn't quite worked out that kind of back end support element as well. So I found a lot of people had sort of two or three layers of concern, being their family and their family homes, you know, helping the communities because that's the role that they have to put out the fires, or in the recovery centres, and then keeping their businesses afloat. And the biggest thing that came through for me is that we're just not a nation of being prepared, and we really don't understand disasters, and we don't understand the catastrophic impacts that they can have socially and financially. And I think you know, again, not to go back to COVID, but COVID has certainly shown us that there's a big upskilling in all businesses across Australia. And I think small businesses would be the most of value in really understanding and integrating a preparedness culture into their everyday business as usual.
Yeah, can you give us some statistics around that? Is there research that tells us how many businesses do recover after a disaster or don't?
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of Australian statistics, but FEMA, which is the Federation of Emergency Management in the US, they've done a lot of research around obviously all their hurricanes, etc. And the stats from there are that after a major disaster, 40% of small businesses don't reopen. So that's immediately after. So you think of all the communities that had major fire, obviously, and 40% of those businesses will never open again. And then up to 90% are closed within 2 years. So if we don't invest in the businesses and reinvest in the ones that we want to reopen and help those businesses reopen, can you imagine all the, you know, your regional area, if you lost 90% of your businesses in 2 years? So everyone would have to move for jobs or go to the next town for, you know, shopping or supplies. And, you know, the lack of economic viability in the town would be catastrophic, which almost is a disaster in itself.
Thanks, Renae. It does make you think about our local community and our local businesses. Sharon, have you got any thoughts around that? And you know, if we do, we haven't had a fire in Forrest, and this is the series is designed to enable us to think about these things a little bit more and prepare. So, what are the sorts of things that you've done to prepare?
Well, I guess we consider Forrest to be very much a destination kind of place, or what in kind of visitor world or hospitality world they call us like a time and place business. We're all like that. That's each of the businesses that exist in town are sort of set up on that principle. So it will be very interesting for us as a township to understand if our environment's impacted, how that then impacts our business. In terms of keeping your business afloat in the event of a disaster, business insurance policies have what's called business interruption insurance, which is it's the biggest peace of mind I have, really. So a large component of the insurance that you pay has some percentage protection of your revenue that you might make each year in the event of a disaster, but not in the event of a pandemic. So that was, like all travel insurance policies, it also has a clause to say that it doesn't cover that. But at this point in time, the business insurance policy that we have would cover us in the event of a natural disaster, including bushfire, and it would look at the revenue loss during that period. And if we were completely closed and we needed to rebuild, it has quite a generous policy associated with that. But then you also got to have the homework and the backup to support that. So it's all really well and good to just pay your premium each month and watch that money go out the door. But you've got to understand the documentation that you need to have in place in order to support a claim or in the event of a claim. So your homework is really boring, but really important. So things like your lease agreements and your assets lists and your employment contracts and your ASIC register, all that kind of stuff, you've got to have that ready to go, really. And I've had it ready to go, I guess, for about 5 years and have it electronically and off-site electronically. So that just provides some peace of mind.
Thanks, Sharon. Yay. Organisation. I love it. It'd be really interesting to have some of those discussions with the other businesses in town to see how well they're placed as well, and perhaps we can start those conversations. This is a good segue into, I guess, if you could think about the top 3 recommendations for a small town and what they might focus their attention on. What might they be? Renae, we might start with you.
Yeah, 3. It's really hard for me to keep it down to 3. So I'm going to pick the top 3 that I think about. So the first one is, when you're preparing, think about the moment. So think about the moment when you're going to be planning for an evacuation, obviously closing down your premises, making sure your employees get out safely, etc. What are the key elements that are going to potentially set you kind of over the edge or are going to take away all your focus away from what you should be doing? And a lot of people have mentioned to me things like, if you're a tourism organisation, you might have a lot of people and future customers ringing asking for refunds, or are you still open? So a really great way to help that not become a bigger issue and a problem for you is to get some pre-messages organised. So get something that you can put on your website and have someone who can actually put it up on your website, or have a message saved on your voicemail for your phones so that you can turn that off. And something really friendly like, thanks so much for your call. We really appreciate, you coming to our local business, etc. We can't get back to you right now, but we'll get back to you as soon as you can because you're really important to us. So just have a message that's really friendly, really personable, and lets them know that you will get back to them. The worst thing you can do then is not get back to them. So try and give them even a timing. So say, we'll get back to you in the next 48 hours. We've got your message, no problems. Because that gives them peace of mind, because a lot of people approaching you are kind of in a what's in it for me. So they just want to know about their holiday and what interruption. They've got no idea about what you're actually going through. So that's one good way. Another one, and I mentioned it before, is build networks. So build networks with your local peers, with your local competitors, with all the businesses or different community groups and associations in your local area, and even in the surrounding towns. So there'll be loads and loads of like-minded business owners like yourself. You're all going to be going through the same processes and steps. So why don't you go through those processes before? And I call, a friend of mine said, you have your 3 a.m. friends. So if you have connections in your community and in your business community who you can call at 3 a.m. and they're going to answer it because they already know who you are, that's going to really help you when you need help at 3 a.m. So get some 3 a.m. friends. And the last one, and I have to always say this, is to think differently and do differently. So if you're planning for future disasters based on the past, you're going to be in trouble, because disasters are going to be different and we need to be different too. So don't just, so Sharon made a great point before around the types of insurance and what's in your insurance. So think about the indirect impacts to your business as well as the direct impacts, because you might have, and I'm seeing this a lot in the East Gippsland area, you might have fire damage insurance cover, but you might not have loss of earnings because people can't come to your store. So there'll be like there's a great example in the Blue Mountains. They had fires burning from September, and in Katoomba in the Blue Mountains, they had no visitors pretty much from September until Christmas. And that's before the major fires of this fire season kicked in. So they had businesses that went, 3 months before the fire season with no customers being able to come. So think about what would be the indirect impacts to your business being able to do business, and work out how you can mitigate that, either through different or better insurance policies, or setting your business up to trade in a different way. So you might set up an online store as a backup or as an additional revenue opportunity as well. So they're probably my 3, but I could go on many, many more.
Oh, thanks, Renae. They're awesome. I'm already thinking about 3 a.m. friends. Interesting idea. Sharon, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess the top one for me is the business insurance and the business interruption insurance. We've also got a total fire day ban policy. So we monitor fire warnings each day across the fire season, and we post those to staff each day, either by email or by text, just as this is what's going to happen tomorrow, and this is what we're expecting, and this is what we expect of you or what we don't expect from you. Often fire season corresponds with our busiest sort of summer trading season, and in the tourism world, a lot of the time your workforce is working holiday visas and people from other countries, and so they don't necessarily understand fire behaviour or understand the bushfire culture that we now have in Australia. So it's important to be able to explain that to people that aren't from here or aren't from your town, so that they can feel a little safer themselves and reassure their families that are from far away. So yeah, tip 2 is like a total fire day policy and communication of that. I think that your bushfire plans for your business and your bushfire plans for your family need to be aligned, because you might have one for your business and you're real keen on protecting the thing that you've built up, but you've got to understand how that complements or works with the bushfire plan that you have for your own household in the end. And yeah, I agree with Renae, the comms policy is really important. What you're going to say, how you're going to say it. In small regional towns, we know that the media come calling in any sort of event. And it's important that we know as a town what we want to say about how we're feeling and how we're responding and what we expect of our community and our visitors and the people that support us.
Yeah, just such great things for hopefully other small businesses to start thinking about and start writing a list of the jobs they need to do to get prepared, because as we know, this next summer will be right around the corner. Renae, is there some places people can go to get more information, resources or tools that they can get hold of?
Yeah, there's a lot of resources available for small businesses, and I'm going to be honest with you, the majority of it is not very good. So there are a lot of frameworks or tools or documents you can download that are quite complex. So I think the most important thing is to kind of work out what is going to work for you and your time and your level of interest. So I've put a link, and they'll be on the website, to the FEMA, which again, I mentioned, it's a US based. They have a really simple kind of resilience form that I think is a really great start. So I recommend you looking at that one and starting. And then we have a program called What If Wednesday, which we're starting off soon, which is to start talking about the what ifs. So what if customers couldn't come to your location? What if your employees couldn't work from your premises? And we've created a disaster checklist for small businesses, because it's really important to understand the types of disasters, obviously bushfire being a really key one, and what they mean to your business and how they could impact your business. Because again, you might not have been impacted directly by the fire, but if the fire has put power out and you don't have power for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then that's obviously going to really impact your business. So just thinking about the different types of ways that direct and indirect impacts from disasters can impact your business. Again, it's a really simple way just to start thinking about disasters and what relationship they have to your business. getting your business and your community of businesses ready for disasters is not actually as difficult or as expensive as you probably think it is. So, you know, there are some great ways that you can actually make it a really fun part of the community as well. So integrating it into an event that you're planning or something like that. So, you know, don't think you have to sit and go through pages and pages and pages of documents to work out and create a business continuity plan, because there are really simple things that you can do to integrate planning and resilience into your business.
Yeah, terrific. Sharon, you're on one of the local tourism boards. Do you have some tips and suggestions for, you know, resources that people can access?
Yeah, so Visit Victoria have a crisis communications handbook for regional and local tourism operators. So that would be a good starting place. Probably needs a little bit of updating to kind of bring in the social channels and things that we can use these days, but that's yeah, a pretty consolidated piece of work that the tourism industry have put together. A couple of other resources which I have found useful in COVID times, but relate to resilience and disasters as well. Primarily for the hospitality industry, but they do interview really prominent regional restaurants and leaders that run those kind of businesses. Is a podcast called Deep in the Weeds, which talks about how the hospitality industry and some tourism businesses have responded to the COVID situation. And the second is called Dirty Linen, which is now looking at different hospitality businesses around the globe and how they've responded in disaster situations. And they do refer to a guide from Christchurch as well. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, and you touched on insurance. I think this is a big one. Do you know, is there sort of a, you know, some good, did you have a lot of hours of Googling, or did you end up finding some good places that compares different policies?
I just have a really good insurance broker actually. And then each time the insurance comes up for renewal, I speak to about 3 or 4 different brokers. And I learn from them. So I take kind of their industry knowledge because they're shopping for the contract. And each year when I talk to them, I've learned more things about what I need to consider in that policy.
Yeah.
And as the circumstances change, you know, policies change as well. So that they're a good way to keep updated.
Yeah, terrific.
Thanks, Sharon, and thanks, Renae. They're amazing tips for our small business owners, and yeah, lots of information in there that people can follow up with as well. Thank you. We'd like to finish on a bit of a positive note, because it can be a bit grim discussing these things. So we'd just like to ask each of our guests, what gives you hope, particularly in times like these?
So I'd like to say, I mean, you would not wish disaster ever on anyone or any community, but I like to say that out of every disaster comes opportunities. And I think, you know, whether it's an opportunity to review your business and set it up to run better, whether it's opportunities to adapt your model so that it's more effective or more profitable. I think whilst you're going through the devastation of the disaster, think and reimagine, like, what could your business be in the new kind of reiteration of it. So again, I whilst, you know, we are in a global pandemic disaster at the moment, but I think it offers great opportunities for businesses in your area and your region to think about how they can be better and how they can actually evolve. So it can be quite positive.
Great way to flip it. Sharon, what gives you hope?
Oh yeah, so mine's a lot more kind of, I guess, personal and a little less bureaucratic, because I spend a lot of time looking at government kind of websites. So I listen to Macca on a Sunday morning, which is something that divides the room. I know. I may lose friends over it, but I guess it's just a touch point each week or most weeks where he speaks to a really broad audience of all sorts of different generations in all sorts of different circumstances. And often in times of disaster, he reflects on that, and the people that call in have really great kind of reassuring stories about what they're going through and how they're responding to that. So it just provides me a little bit of a different point of view.
Thank you both for taking the time to share your wisdom and your experiences and stories.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. For those listening, if you'd like to know more about this topic, a list of those resources mentioned by Sharon and Renae will be on our website at fireandrainconversations.org. And if you have any questions, comments or feedback from today's conversation or for our conversation series more generally, please get in touch via the website.
The theme for our next conversation is land management of the bush behind our town. What do we need to know at a local level, and what are the factors that go into managing that land? So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
But I always thought that I'd see you again.